He's the founder of Gelato, and I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, so I'll let him do that for you guys. Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you. Hello, ETHDenver. So, I'm going to talk to you today about zero gas, infinite scale, Web3, the bull case for AppChains, and how to build them. I'm Lewis, and I'm the founder of Gelato Network, and we have a booth over there in case you want to join us there. Yeah, you will be greeted by very, very nice people there, so highly recommended. Okay, so let me first start by taking you a quick trip down memory lane, and let's talk about how Web2 scaled. Looking at the audience, I think not many people were there for that, but it did happen at some point. All right, so Web2 started with local hosting on physical servers. So at some point, people who hosted a website literally had a machine in the basement, and there was the website running on that machine. And obviously, that didn't scale very well. Like, if you had visitors on your website from another country or continent, you know, they would have very slow loading times. And also, if your electricity was out or anything else happened to your server, your website would be down as well. So yeah, basically, very early days of the web, very unscalable, lots of problems. From there, we went to shared hosting, GeoCities and DreamHost. I don't remember them. Some people here might remember those. Yeah, and basically, they did solve a problem. They managed servers for you, and they managed website hosting for you. Great, but there were still a lot of issues with it. So you would be very constrained in your scalability still because you were sharing that infrastructure with everybody else using that same shared hosted provider. That means that if you had another website on there that suddenly had a huge surge in traffic, your website that has nothing to do with that website would also suffer from that and maybe be down, right? So not very scalable. And also, one of the biggest issues is it's very inflexible because these shared hosting providers would have a specific framework, a specific programming language to work with, and you would be constrained by that. You would have to learn that and write your application in that, and you would lose the benefits of all the other nice programming languages and architectures out there that maybe would have helped you to build a much better web app the way you actually wanted to, right? So, still bad. Endgame for Web2 is, surprise, surprise, AWS and Google Cloud and whatever else have you, right? And really what they brought to the table was they allowed you to have your own server, but not physical anymore, a virtual server with a virtual machine on it. So now you could truly deploy your web application in isolation. You wouldn't share bandwidth with others. You could horizontally scale as many instances of these servers that you needed. And nowadays, to be honest, like EC2, Elastic Compute and so on, they even allow you to auto-scale based on traffic and so on, right? Like it's very smart hosting. And with your own VMs, you could also use all of the technology out there and really build the web app just the way you wanted to build it, right? So that's the end game here of Web2. So the key point here is that the internet is not one huge world computer. It is a web of interconnected computers. And Web2 scaled via asynchronous services. You would deploy a bunch of your services, instances, machines, whatever, and they would all talk to each other via asynchronous communication tools like HTTP, right? APIs and whatnot. And also they would talk to the rest of the internet that way. And it was all interconnected. So let's talk about Web3's evolution, and let's try to draw some parallels here. And the claim is that asynchronous cloud services are scaling Web3 too, today already on Gelato. And in the Web3 evolution, what we have observed is that there is a movement from the early days of Web3, monolithic chains, to where we are today, infinite virtual chains or rollups in the Web3 cloud. So, just like I showed you those 3 stages of Web2 scaling, I'm going to now show you similar stages congruently of Web3 scaling. And Web3 started with Bitcoin and other special purpose L1s before Ethereum. And back then, if you were a developer back then in 2013 or whatnot, if you also wanted to build an application like Bitcoin, you would similarly have to bootstrap your own validator set, launch your blockchain the way Bitcoin was launched or similar, And yeah, that's, I mean, even harder than, you know, reliably hosting a physical server in your own home for website hosting. That's much worse even. You had projects trying to do this, like Mastercoin, Dogecoin, some of them still live, right? But obviously this wasn't the end game here because it was way too expensive. Imagine if you want to build your blockchain application, imagine you have to bootstrap your own validator set, you have to generate your own token, you have to inflate the token, you have to pay them, and you then still have to be sure that it's enough for there not to be 51% attacks. So basically impossible. And from there we have Ethereum, yay, ETHDenver, right, Ethereum. Ethereum was huge because Ethereum allowed people to deploy their applications not as blockchains, not as validator networks, but as smart contracts, right? And very similar to shared hosting providers, GeoCities and DreamHost and so on, Ethereum was a great managed service for applications, smart contracts. It gave them the shared security, it gave them the global sort of network, all out of the box, high, like basically infinite uptime and so on, all great. But it suffers from the same problems that the shared hosting providers suffered from, which is it is very inflexible, right? Like you have the EVM, you have Solidity, compilers and so on, but you can't really do that much on Ethereum in terms of a wide array of programming languages, parallel execution, whatever you want to do, you can't really do it on there, right? So yeah, and on top of that, you're sharing Ethereum with every other application out there. So if a degen is doing like an ICO or NFT drop, suddenly your application and your users have to pay huge gas fees, or like they suffer from high congestion, your application suffers, and yeah, it's basically not scalable. And I think everybody agrees today. If Vitalik agrees, because he published the Rollup-centric roadmap 3 years ago, right? So yeah, the end game for Web3 scaling is virtual blockchains on Rollup as a service. Virtual blockchains are just rollups. You can think of rollups as virtual blockchains. They are blockchains within a blockchain. They are blockchains that are hosted off-chain on centralized sequencers like Gelato, but they are still sort of posting commitments and data to the real blockchain, right? So yeah, it's a bit like VMs were on Web2, like on AWS and so on, where now a rollup as a service provider like Gelato can host your application as a rollup, not as a smart contract anymore. It's now a rollup with smart contracts. And you are in isolation, you don't share this bandwidth with others, you can spin up as many instances as you need and as you want. We can all, you know, automate this for you, even it's all auto-scalable just like in the cloud. And yeah, you still have the benefits of Ethereum, still have maximum security from Ethereum, and now you have maximum customizability as well, because you can actually on a rollup modify the EVM, you can merge EIPs that you like that aren't live on mainnet yet, you can take the SVM like Solana, you can do whatever you want on there. And that's really equivalent now to Web2 Endgame. And we're reaching this endgame thanks to Gelato now in Web3 as well. So let's unpack Gelato's Web3 cloud. A simplified version or model here is just to think of the base layer. Those are the rollup frameworks, OP, Arbitrum, Polygon, DA layer, Celestia, EigenDA, whatnot, right? That's one part. And then the second part is essential services. Just like on AWS, you have MongoDB, you have various Linux OSs, you have all sorts of APIs like SQL databases, whatnot. Similarly to that in Web3, you need a specific range of services to really make your application powerful and scalable. And yeah, Gelato has its own suite of services. That's what we're known for 4 years. Like 2 years ago at ETHDenver, we weren't talking about rollup as a service. We were talking about smart contract automation, serverless functions. All of these things still exist, and they benefit our rollup as a service clients today. But yeah, there's also many other partners that we are deeply integrated with and working with on rollup as a service. We have the Graph, we have GoldSky for indexing, block explorers, Etherscan, Block Scout, bridging, cross-chain messaging, layer 0 across oracles, Pyth, Redstone, and so on, right? So that's sort of how you can think of it. There's the chain, and then there's the services you need to build. And like if you combine them, you can build actual applications that aren't, you know, subpar to Web2 anymore. They actually rival with Web2. So you can see how easy it is to deploy a rollup with Gelato. You can just go to our UI, you pick your stack, you pick your DA layer. Yeah, you can configure services you need, on-ramps, off-ramps, bam, and then the rollup is deployed. I'm going to skip forth a bit. You can look at analytics. You can see what services are live on the rollup, bridges, blah, blah, blah. So yeah. All right, let's go a bit more technical now, still very high level. But yeah, the core blockchain design, right? This is what you're looking at here is essentially a rollup. We have the execution layer, the modified version of the EVM normally, that's OP-Geth, Arbitrum, Polygon, CDK, whatever. And then you have Ethereum as a settlement layer, and that's really crucial, right? That's the whole point of a rollup is you don't actually spin up a new blockchain with new assets on them. You actually still have your assets in smart contracts on Ethereum, and you just upload them into your rollup for high throughput execution. But ultimately, if the rollup somehow has a fault, you can still get your assets out on Ethereum, and Ethereum is saving you in that case. Yeah, and for data availability nowadays, it's you can use Ethereum, but you can also use Celestia or others if you want to really save on gas costs, and that's really what gets you to zero gas rollups, which is also the title of this talk as well, right? Basically, zero gas rollups mean rollups where your users pay zero transaction costs. And yeah, let's expand from here. So we still have the rollup stack. As I will go through these charts with you, you will see that we're expanding from the inside out. And we still have the rollup stack here, but now we're adding scalable RPCs. DRPC, for example, is our partner right now. So, and block explorers, and the native bridge that lets you bridge assets from Ethereum to your rollup in the most secure way known today via the rollup bridge, the cryptographic bridge, or even a zero-knowledge bridge like in Polygon CDK. So yeah, that's like the essential infra with the rollup core infra and the sort of block explorer and bridge that you sort of need. And that's where most rollup as a service providers stop, right? It's pretty cool already, but it's also pretty useless because there's a bunch of services that you really should consider using to build a fully fledged application that rivals with the likes of Web2. And that's where Gelato really shines as a rollup as a service provider, because we're more than that. We are not just a rollup as a service provider, we are a Web3 cloud services provider, and we are a Web3 cloud platform. That means you get the rollup as a service, but you also, for example, get Gelato functions, the serverless environment. You can liken this to AWS Lambda, right, in the AWS architecture. And you get Relay and so on, right? So you can now, and actually our rollup as a service customers are heavily using these services with their rollup. And from day one, for example, when they launch the blockchain, they can use functions and data from Redstone or Pyth to immediately stream price feeds to the blockchain and have a fully functional DeFi application from day one, like a perpdex or whatnot, right? And taking this a step further, if you want to have the best UX on your UI, you can use Gelato Relay now and have your users send transactions in an account abstracted way to your rollup so that they literally just sign in with Google, they get, I don't know, wallet as a service keys, and they just click buttons. No more MetaMask pop-ups, no more tedious gas management, just buttons and trading and all the fun, right? All right, and beyond that, we have GoldSky, Graph, and so on from day one on your rollup so that you have GraphQL indexing for your UI. You can display data in a very nice way. And last but not least, we have liquidity provider and cross-chain message bridging on your rollup from day one so that you can also not just work with a very slow process of bridging ETH away from your rollup, or, I mean, the native bridge doesn't even allow you to go from other rollups to your rollup, but liquidity providers like Across and so on allow you to connect to the world of other rollups, Base, Optimism mainnet, you name it. So that's like a full stack Gelato rollup as a service application. It could be used for a DeFi rollup if you want to build a perpdex. It could be used for whatever else have you, like a game. But yeah, let's take this one step further because you still have to talk to other chains, right? Like now your rollup is live, it's super scalable. Your users just click buttons, they're happy, they don't pay any transaction fees, but they still need to talk to other chains sometimes, right? Like you still want to connect to other user bases from other chains. And it's a very simple piece of the puzzle for asynchronous communication. In the web, we have HTTP and so on, and in the blockchain world, we have these cross-chain messaging protocols like Layer 0, Connext, and so on, right? That let you connect to other chains and move assets from your rollup to those chains, or more importantly for you, from other rollups to your rollup. All right, almost finished, but let's take this to the absolute end game. There's a buzzword on here for those of you who are knowledgeable here in the rollup space, which is shared sequencing. So in the Web2 world, if you really have massively scalable applications like, I don't know, World of Warcraft or whatever, Usually you have a ton of servers and you sort of segment your user base into regions, right? Like maybe you're on the, I don't know, European server, on the US server, whatever it is. And this way you can guarantee a high throughput for your users. But if your user in the US on a server wants to play with a friend in Europe, that doesn't work unless these two users or gamers meet on the same server. So for that, you would then migrate your character, your in-game assets and so on from one server to another. It works. And just like that in Web3 with cross-chain messaging, you can also sort of, if you wanted to, if you were building a game, you could launch, I don't know, 3 rollups and sort of segment your user base and divide them amongst those 3. But if you want to have them interoperate synchronously with each other, if you want the smart contracts on these rollups to talk synchronously with each other, then you need shared sequencing. And just why do you even need this in the first place? Even if you have this hyperscale with your rollup, with super cheap DA on Gelato, if you have crazy use cases, these technologies like OP and so on, even today, they have certain throughput limits. So at some point, you need to scale horizontal, just like you would on AWS. You know, your server instances will eventually also they will run out, and you need more of them, and you then need to load balance between them or whatever, like, you know. So yeah, similarly, you could build like a massively scalable gaming application on Gelato where you would deploy 5 rollups, but you still want the game to be a single game experience. Everybody is on basically the same game, and for that you need shared sequencing. And that basically just means that you have these different execution environments, these different rollups processing all of your in-gaming transactions, but they all are synchronized amongst each other, basically in a single block that is created by the shared sequencer. And there's projects out there trying to solve this problem today, like Espresso and others. And I think that's not reached yet. That is not solved yet. But I think end of this year, this will also be solved. To be honest, if you're at this stage, it's a luxury problem. You know, normally in Web3, we don't even have that many users. But at least now the technology is ready for it. So if you're there, you know, you can be proud of yourself. Kudos. And we will have a solution with shared sequencing at the end of this year for you there as well. All right. All right. So Ethereum is not one huge world computer. It's a Web3 of interconnected rollups on Gelato. And yeah, if you want to come build with us to scale Ethereum, here you can see a bunch of applications that have been working with us in the last 4 years. Many of them on our middleware services, limit orders and so on, like PancakeSwap, SushiSwap, Synthetics, Optimism, Pyth, Redstone, all these great projects, Beefy Finance, many of them have booths here today, have been working with us for 4 years. Some of them are already deploying chains on our rollup as a service today or tomorrow. And yeah, basically it's just chill. Like if you want to build with Gelato, build on Gelato, you're going to be in good company. We've been doing this stuff for 4 years. We've been trusted in production with our technology for 4 years by the best protocols in the space. And yeah, we are more than ready to provide you not just with smart contract middleware services, but also with your own block space so that you can scale and actually build a meaningful application where your users are not annoyed anymore and where your users prefer that even to a Web2 counterpart. So yeah, thank you very much for coming to this talk. You can find out more about Gelato Network on X. First time I said X and not Twitter. So yeah, Gelato Network and also Git Pusher. That's me on Twitter. Just jump into our Discord. We have many nice developer relation stuff, many nice people that will help you get onboarded, help you integrate our services, and yeah, you know, let's scale Web3 together. Thanks a lot. All right.